Hey everyone, welcome. We have here Richmond Heath, the founder of TRE Australia, and we've been connecting over the years. It's been really lovely to create a friendship with Richmond here. He's an amazing shaker, very experienced. He's been probably doing this longer than almost anyone else on earth, like sharing the therapeutic tremoring through TRE, and you're one of the first TRE teachers, is that right? Or early on, or
Yeah, one of the early ones. There's a couple who got introduced to the work through David Berselli, a couple of years before me. But there might be some people who've been doing it, say, 18 or 19 years or something. I think I'm like 16 or 17. So certainly one of the early ones.
that's amazing. And yes, it's great to be here with you. Great to see you. And really, I want to unpack today for the shaky medicine ecosystem, what is like the basics of TRE and do a session and basically introduce it. I see shaking medicine as an umbrella that's just I just love any wisdom we can find regarding this powerful shaking mechanism that we have. And TRE is obviously one of the biggest shaking modalities out there, probably the biggest actually.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to get some TRE uh,
Like a
like
lens.
officially like the TRE lens of more officially in our ecosystem. And
Yeah.
so thank you for being here and yeah, so what are what's the basics to understand first off for someone
Yeah,
who's new?
well, so it is great to be able to do this, Keith. And I really love like exactly what you're doing is holding this sort of hub for all the different sort of shaking traditions. So, you know, at the essence is the spontaneous moving body. And TRE is just one sort of lens. And I suppose the key thing about TRE is it's really bridging into the mainstream world where a lot of other shaking techniques are very alternative and complementary. It doesn't make them better, worse, or anything else. But where TRE is, and this is probably my personal passion, is really trying to hold a space for it to integrate into the mainstream medical model. Because, for example, in Australia, where I am, 95% of the community are mainstream. So while it's easy to introduce any sort of form of shaking medicine to the alternative community because they're going to be open-minded and they don't need that, for me, there's a real passion is that making this tremor mechanism or this shaking process available to everyone.
Mm.
And so that's where the TRE model has very much gone down the trauma through the trauma lens originally, but it's completely expanding and it is not. I want to be really clear to everyone in the shaking medicine community that doesn't make it better or it doesn't make it necessarily accurate. And from my perspective, it can become, TRE can become too trauma focused, and people are really focused about what's letting go in the past. And sort of the whole model is backwards looking, which can be really relevant for people who are in that state. But then we often miss out on being forwards moving and looking at what is becoming more alive or, is being revitalized or being woken up or being generated in sort of a forward looking sort of creative sense. And for me, that's where I always love that understanding that we don't just shake and tremor when we're sort of being traumatized or when we've got more charge in the system because we're excited, but we all shake and tremor for 9 months in utero. So the very foundation of our whole posture, our movement system, our reflexes, in fact, our whole conscious mind and development is based on the foundation of the spontaneous movements in the body. So that's where I see, TRE is like targeting this one particular niche that fits into a Western medical model because it's grounded in polyvagal theory and that sense of how stress and trauma show up. So it has really great clinical applications. But again, I just see it's like one of the hubs where if someone like, you're in India at the moment, people don't need to have a trauma informed model if shaking is already seen as part of a Kundalini experience, or, the Kalahari Bushmen are working with their Nyom. I can't do their accent, But, we don't need to overlay the sense that it's all about trauma releasing at all, but it's
Mm,
really useful for what we can, for those people who are in that model as an avenue in. And often then it's about people starting there and then moving into sort of a more expanded understanding about what it is in terms of flow states, peak experience, letting go, wu wei. There's all this, not just about once people get out of the trauma state, it's like, oh, hang on, this is actually moving me forwards in life. Does that
yeah,
is
yeah.
that too broad or?
That makes total sense to me. That's kind of like the understanding I had, and that's I think that's so important. Like someone needs to target the mainstream medical model, and it's not my preference to do. Like I'm happy as shaking medicine gets in there, but we've been definitely more on that alternative lens, and still, I speak a lot to the trauma. It's very important. So
Mm,
it's just the depth at which y'all have cultivated the trauma model is really powerful, and it's so important to reach this mainstream society. And the and this kind of that focus on the trauma, I agree, it's so important to, well, especially as we shift that stuff to start cultivating our human potential, everything you said, the Kundalini, the flow state, all that, um, our craft, our arts, our embodiment, this stuff really works towards cultivating all of this. And pretty much from the beginning with shaking medicine, I've kind of divided it in that middle of saying, okay, usually at first it's a lot about letting go of the stuff that doesn't serve us, like the trauma, the trapped
yeah.
emotions, the tension. But then there's the whole other side of the coin is the, okay, cultivate the energy, the better sleep,
Mm,
the spontaneous Kundalini Kriyas,
yep.
and our human potential, which is infinite, the way I see it. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And I've got a good friend and colleague who's in Brazil, who talks a lot about pleasure. So again, it's very much about the lens that people come to it, and people come to TRE because they've got stress and tension and trauma. So that's lovely. But again, it tends to be very backwards focusing rather than. But once we get into it, as you say, then it becomes, wow, this is about how can I become more of myself? How can I become more alive,
Mm,
be more creative, have more energy, be more authentic, and getting into a much more forward facing model. And that
mm.
sense of pleasure, instead of like, oh, I'm shaking, what's letting go? It's like, oh, I'm shaking. How good does this feel?
Ooh,
And,
yeah.
getting into that positive, playful space with it.
Yeah, it's important. It is important, I think, that backwards of letting go, but quickly we can look forward as well. And the pleasure that it's brought me in my life is just,
Mm,
there's no words to describe the potency of it.
yep.
And many others I've shared this with. So yeah, I and even I don't know about you, but when I'm letting go of something heavy or dense with the therapeutic trimming, I've even learned to find that pleasurable. Like even the hard moments, it's like, oh, it might be painful or hard, but it's like I enjoy it, the process, because I know on the other side of it is more of this pleasure and joy and love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and something's been really strong for me in the last 6 months to a year is really focusing on um, the role of tension in the body as strength. So I certainly know, when TRE started and from what I was introduced, it was all about letting go of tension. But and a lot of it was all about shaking. But one of the things, of course, is we look at the way the body spontaneously, or we would use the term neurogenically, just to give it a fancy scientific sort of name, the way the body pandiculates, which is when the body's moving under tension and load. So it's not necessarily shaking. And so this is another element where recognizing that the ability for the body to generate tension is another word for the ability of the body to generate strength. And so often in TRE traditionally, it's all about letting go of tension, rather than honoring the sort of both sides of the dance, which is if we can let the body generate more tension, it's generating more strength, which is also this sense of coming alive.
I
So,
love that.
TRE is a very wide model, and I'm someone who's probably, at the front end of trying to evolve it and open up the paradigm and beyond just it's about trauma release. And there are people in the provider community who are much more just like, oh, this is all about trauma release. But ultimately, whatever it is that is moving us, what do we call it? Kundalini or life force or chi or prana or, the Holy Spirit, or, I often just refer to the organic wisdom of the human organism, whatever the hell that means. So whatever it is, that's really what's at the essence, leading all of us in these, whether it's Katsujin Undo or whether it's Seiki Jutsu or whether it's TRE or shaking medicine. The heart of it is, of course, is the organic wisdom in the body and the movements itself.
Indeed. Yeah, 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 totally. So what about what are some what is some of the or let's say the lens at which for someone new to Thierry, what
Mm,
lens do you like to
mm.
provide? I know you said some of it, but some maybe terminologies or the way you would describe how the tremor mechanism evolves within someone or awakens and starts to move
Mm.
these tensions and or cultivate the strength through the penticulations, as you said. Um,
Yeah, so look, ironically for me, the longer I teach it, the less I care about the science and the explanation because we can explain it to a certain degree, but you've only got a young child come along and just going to keep asking why. Oh, the nervous system does this. Well, why does the nervous system eventually going to say we don't know, it just seems to work and let's do it. But the one of the key models that I find incredibly helpful for TRE and people do is looking at this phenomenon through the polyvagal lens of the nervous system. Now, in TRE, we will talk about neurogenic tremors. Again, just a sort of scientific term meaning that the nervous system is generating the movement. Now, I don't like that term because in utero, the tissues of the body are actually shaking and vibrating and trembling before they're connected to the central nervous system. So before the nervous system has even got anything to do with generating the movement, the tissues are already vibrating and shaking themselves. It gets called myoclonic twitches. So I personally prefer the term autogenic movements, which really means what? They're generated by themselves automatically. So it doesn't say what's doing it, but it broadens it from the nervous system. But the
Interesting.
but the value of this nervous system model and the polyvagal model is that we start to get a model of understanding how our body responds to life, positive, negatively, but especially things that we perceive or are related to past unresolved stresses and traumas, and where the spontaneous reawakening of the body's ability to pulsate, it gives us a model of how we are coming alive. So understanding how our body responds to stress and trauma, going through that, it's either ventral vagal, which means it's calm and relaxed, fight or flight, sympathetic arousal, but understanding how when we go into dorsal vagal, true trauma survival states. For me, what I love is having this model of a movement based model of stress and trauma rather than an emotional one or a psychological one. But how does the body respond? And it either responds by, with fight and flight, generating more movement. But when we move into any sort of immobility, shutdown, collapse, contained state, it inhibits movement. And that's really important because we start to recognize that all of us are carrying unresolved stress and tension and trauma. So sitting here, we could both be feeling fantastic. But if we get a massage therapist to come around with their elbow, they're going to be pushing into places where we've got tension that we can't feel. So it
Mm,
gives us this great model of understanding where we get disconnected from our body and our organism, which is part of that sort of survival response. But then the beauty of the polyvagal model is going, that's all an unconscious response to stress and tension and triggers. So, if I've been bitten by a black dog as a child, a little fluffy white puppy now, 50 years later, my body starts to react as if that's dangerous. So understanding these unconscious patterns and the way we react and the way we get triggered, but more importantly, having a model for how we can allow those triggers to literally move us and let our bodies respond autogenically is how the body integrates those responses, and literally each trigger can bring us back to life. So having this, I like to call it a trauma integrating model. A lot of people talk about trauma informed. And for me, Keith, when I hear that term, what it generally means is I know how to prevent, I know how to make sure you never get triggered. I create a safe space where you're never going to get triggered. And that can be really valuable for people who are highly, distressed. However, when we have that model of trauma informed, where trauma informed means avoiding all our triggers, we don't actually ever heal or grow. And so for me, I like to
Mm.
say that TRE is trauma integrating, which means instead of avoiding triggers, we're actually opening ourselves to letting our body autogenically move and respond. Even if it goes into a big defensive freeze response, that's movement, because we know that the spontaneous movement is going to bring us out of that. And every time it brings us out of those automatic responses, our system is a little bit more physiological, mature, and integrated. So what
Mm.
the sort of summary for me is one of the greatest things that I've sort of see in TRE, and this primarily comes out of, David Berceli, the TRE founder's work and his whole trauma model, was not just about trauma, but having a lens for how my organism responds to my life experiences, and then having a foundational understanding that every time I get triggered by anything, instead of going, and getting into blaming and projecting, which is the classic fight or flight response we're designed to focus out there. Oh, it's because you said this, because you didn't do that. I didn't feel safe because of blah, 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 blah. It gives us a model to go, wow, look, I'm having this defensive reaction. It's all unconscious. How do we let our body come out of that response? Well, we let it do it autogenically. The body shakes itself. And then when it
Mm.
resolves that physiologically, all of a sudden we're like, right, now I've learned that I survived that, I'm safe. And I become a little bit more grounded and a little bit
Mm.
more solid. And so for me, the real value, the biggest value in my life, and that I see, is that it becomes a process where the shaking, the tremoring, the pandiculation, the fascial stretching, all that stuff grows what I like to call physiological maturity in our
Mm.
nervous system. So we become more grounded and solid. Doesn't mean we're always more calm, because sometimes we'll be a bit more reactive in areas that we've shut off and dissociated and split off and fragmented in ourselves. We don't even realize that we're people pleasing, or we don't realize that we've shut down and our creativity's gone. Um, but this is what I love the most, because it creates a model and an understanding how the autogenic movements, both going into the protective responses and then letting the body come out of them, how they
Mm.
grow physiological maturity in our nervous system, which then starts to grow a healthy, grounded, mature, balanced sense of self, or a healthy, mature ego, that then changes how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we relate to, the world around us as well. I'm getting a bit excited now, but
Yeah, I feel
it's a big
it.
thing.
Yeah, it
It's a
is.
powerful model.
It's one of the most powerful things the world has, I feel, is this what you're talking about. So thank you for sharing, and I love your wisdom and your vocabulary you have around describing it all. I
Well,
yeah.
yeah, well, I describe it in 10,000 words. David Berceli, he's got all these wonderful quotes, and one of his great quotes that sums it up in a quote is, he says, external conflict ends with the dawn of internal peace. So external conflict ends with the dawn of internal peace. It's what sages and religions and everyone's been saying forever, but this sense of
Yeah.
go within our own physiology.
Mm.
And
The
having a
way out is in.
That's right. And having a polyvagal model, it's just a neuroscientific, Western scientific model, but that fits again the mainstream world of
Oh yeah,
going,
it's
right,
important.
I'm triggered, my body's activated a defense response. Great.
Mm.
That's going on inside me. And I always love to give people a couple of questions. The first question I always love to give people is, okay, is your body under threat right now? And if your body is under threat, well, then I always say, run like hell or fight for your life. But 99% of the time in the Western world, where we're not in war zones and all that sort of life and death stuff, our body's not under threat. And it's our ego that's being challenged and tricked. So as soon as we recognize that we're in a triggered state, we're in fight or flight, or we're in a shutdown sort of freeze immobility, instantly the invitation is to go, right, let's go in. What's going on inside the body? And that's where it's all going to resolve. And as we resolve that in ourselves, naturally our relationships and the way we relate to the world around us starts to change.
This this reminds me of, I often share a lot with my students and teachers and stuff, like sometimes we have to feel it to heal it, and the journey isn't, it seems to me most of the time it's quite like pleasant and it feels good, but once in a while it's like, oh, we get into that deep trauma energy or trapped emotion or that old injury, and it's like, oh, it's uncomfortable. And it might be, if we go too far, too quick, too hard, it could get overwhelming and stuff like that. But again, I see that as like a moment of like we're on the precipice of going into that, maybe that contraction and that hardship, and to feel it, to go into it, and then vibrate it away through the tremoring, is it's dissolving a layer of it. That's how we heal. And the journey's a bit often wavy, but on average it's usually going up to more joy and love in life. And quite often I have students like come to me or like, oh, like this happened, this my shoulder started hurting, and I'm like, well, we didn't really do anything strenuous at all on your shoulder. So do you think our process injured you, or do you think an old injury might be surfacing that was numb
Yeah.
in the freeze response or something? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. And I think this is something where TRE does really have some great stuff to offer. The first thing I want to say, again, this has been in the last couple of years, I've got more and more clear about this, is and this is not necessarily everyone in the TRE community, this is much more personally for me, is I always like to say, trauma is a verb. And what I mean by that is trauma is not like a noun that's trapped in my body or stuck in my body like the water in the proverbial bucket, because we think, oh, it's there and I've got to tip it out or it's got to come to the surface. But I like to explain that trauma is our body generating a certain pattern of behavior or state in the body in the current moment. Right,
Mm.
right here and right now. Because if I give you a general anesthetic, Keith, all that stress and tension has disappeared. It's all completely gone. So it's not that it's there all the time. It's like a software issue where the body is generating it. Now, the reason this is relevant is twofold. One is what I've become more aware of is that when our organism is able to release these patterns autogenically or neurogenically, then we don't necessarily go through any psychological or emotional uh, reliving of it. Again, in the early days, I'd be like, oh yeah, you've got to feel that to heal it. You've got to feel that emotion. Whereas these days, what I'd say to people is, we only feeling the emotion when the neurogenic pathway is not able to let that actually resolve at an even freer level. And beyond that, what I personally believe is that the shaking is actually the battle between the body holding on and letting go, where it's sort of let's go and then
Ah.
it grabs. So in the early days of TRE, I would have been like, the bigger the shaking, the better. We want more shaking. These days, I'm going, the shaking is just a step on the pathway to the body basically just going, I can let that go. Because I like to always say to people, no matter how severe a trauma is, how long did it take for your body to activate the trauma response? It's obvious. It's a split second. And even if it's been reactivating that for 25 years, in theory, how long does it take for the body to let that pattern go? Theoretically, a split second. The reason I'm saying this is relevant twofold. So one is that we open ourselves to the idea that it doesn't have to take, if I've got 30 years of stress and trauma, it's going to take me 30 years of tipping out my bucket and emptying it out. But actually going, wow, my nervous system has learnt to organize a certain way. And all we really need to do is give it an opportunity to reorganize itself in a less defended way. The other bit that's really relevant, though, and this is, I think, is something that TRE does quite well, is learning to regulate the movements and the spontaneous movements and recognizing what I call somatic markers of protection. So what that means is, say we start shaking, and TRE will generally start with the legs because if we're on the floor, you can do it lots of different ways. But, you're on the floor, the legs are shaking, everything's great. And then all of a sudden, the shoulders start to brace or the jaw starts to clench. And people might say, oh, that's like the old trauma coming up. Whereas I'll say, no, that's the body actively responding, actively protecting in the moment. Part of the body wants to let go, part of the body wants to hold on. And that is the classic trauma state where you've got the sympathetics and the parasympathetics opposing each other.
Mm.
And so if someone's quite grounded and integrated, it doesn't matter if they go into this big internal, conflict process. It doesn't matter if they've got massive pain in their shoulder. If they can make sense of it and they're happy, or they have a huge healing crisis for 3 days, if they're like, I love a healing crisis, you're like, great, keep going. But what can happen is when people aren't so integrated, or they're not able to have the time and space to go on a 3-day healing journey and they can't get to work and they want to go to work, is learning to pick up, again, what I call somatic markers of active protection, which by that, what I mean, like we've all got chronic tension in the body. So, someone might come into a session and they've got tight shoulders. So I call that passive protection because it's not relevant to the shaking. But when we start shaking, often what happens is parts of our body protect and hold against the letting go or letting the energy come in there or letting the movement happen there. And when we're not aware of that, there's a bit of a splitting in the system. Often that's going to be okay. For most people, it's all going to sort itself out. But for some people, and especially people who've got a history of trauma, when that splitting happens, it's like then once they've stopped shaking, they start to come back out of that splitting off protective pattern. And then they're like, oh my God, I've got all this anxiety. So the way I explain it to people these days is if something comes up after your shaking session, I always say this, it's not coming up afterwards. It came up during the session. It's just that you were not yet aware of that protective response happening during the session. And because that's all happening subconsciously, this is where learning to track the body's response to the shaking rather than my psycho-emotional response. It's following the body's response in the early days. You don't have to over-regulate it, and that's a problem that happens in TRE. People have to be vigilant, like, oh, I have to consciously regulate it all. But if people are having difficulties, generally, is what I'm saying, stuff is coming up while we're tremoring. There's a splitting off. Parts of the body keep shaking and other parts stop the shaking and are actively protecting themselves during it. And I think this is something that's really, this is really beautiful when people learn to regulate their body and respond. It starts to really deepen that embodied self-awareness and so that people are shaking while more and more of their body is happy to, and they're not driving the process and trying to get more out or shake more. They're more learning to follow their system. And in TRE, the key words we would have is follow the body. So it's like honoring the body. If it needs to hold and protect and it needs a break, stop and take a break. Now, the only caveat, because people then get over-regulated, is I always say, if your body's starting to protect itself and to brace and hold, if you can let that bracing increase even further so it becomes movement, well, then it's not immobilized and it's not holding. So let it go further into the pattern and then it comes back out. So that's the difference between it going into an immobility containment versus, letting the body move further in. And my experience over the last few years, I haven't had anyone have any sort of stuff come up afterwards for years, and no one getting overwhelmed. Um, in the online course that I started during COVID, that's had 14,000 people through it, Keith, I haven't had a single person contact me with any level of overwhelm or stuff coming up afterwards, because it's got a screening tool so that if you've got major traumas, like, go and see a provider. But that sense of when people learn to regulate their body's response, in my experience, then it just gets more and more smooth, more and more graceful, and more moves with less stress and drama. That's the key thing. It's not about the regulating it, and regulating somatic markers of protection doesn't reduce the shaking. What it does is it makes it more efficient, more effective, and more graceful. So there's more freedom of movement with less of the handbrake on at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So this one way I look at this bracing, or this often like I'm spontaneously moving, or my students, and and then the body goes into like a squeeze somewhere, like a tightening, a squeeze, which I see as like a kind of spontaneous pendiculation,
Yep.
which is, as I see it, another instinctive mechanism, very complementary to neurogenic therapeutic tremoring. And in my classes in recent years, I've started actually guiding people through the art of pendiculation. I'm
Mm.
calling it like this.
Yep.
I've even broken it into voluntary pendiculation and spontaneous pendiculation, which is real pendiculation. But we
Yep.
can kind of train our bodies to like voluntarily, intelligently squeeze. Like I'll do that as part of a warm up to a journey sometimes. And then as we get more and more able to allow that, the trimmering and the squeezing just like dances
Yep.
together. And it just, yeah, it totally is freeing of the body. It's this dance that just takes it a whole nother octave deeper, I feel. Yeah.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. And that's where, when David Berceli started TRE, there was like, oh, you've got to do these 7 exercises and da da da. In my experience, pandiculating, consciously, volitionally pandiculating, is the most effective way of preparing the body to go into the spontaneous movement. And then I agree, my sense is that as the body gets more integrated, it tends to pandiculate and move itself rather than to shake and tremor as it gets more integrated. So I too, I've done some workshops on pandiculation, and I'm also just about to release an advanced online TRE course, and one of the sessions in there is all about voluntary pandiculation, which I think is, as I say, the most profound way to go into the shaking or the tremoring. But as you pointed out, the real pandiculation is when the body starts to do that itself. And that was my introduction to this whole field, Keith, wasn't through TRE. Most people who do TRE, that's their first introduction, is through the shaking. 8 or 9 years prior to that, I had my spontaneous awakening at a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation class where my body began to pandiculate. So my grounding in this process was predated the shaking and tremoring. It was actually all about the spontaneous pandiculation, where my body went from being unable to lift my arms above my shoulders because of years of chronic shoulder impingement pain, to within a couple of days being able to do a one-handed handstand and body press my entire weight on one arm. I had my feet against the wall for balance. But the reason I'm saying is that, everything that I'd been trained as a physio about strength training and all that just went out the window. And the
Mm.
reason I'm saying that is because that was all pandiculation. It wasn't shaking and tremoring at that point. It wasn't just the shaking, it was the movement. And they play a complete role. But anyway, I'm really pleased to hear you talk about the pandiculation. I think it's the most efficient and effective way to really ramp up the body's ability to free up and move than any other
Yeah.
sort of stretching or strengthening.
it fascinates me that, we haven't touched base much in the last 2 years or so, but it's like we're on similar paths. I'm like
Yeah.
finding this out now. That's cool
Yeah.
because it was like 2, 3 years ago I started like learning about pendiculation more like intellectually. My body was already kind of doing it on
Yeah.
a bit on its own, but I started to learn it. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then incorporating the practices into the modality of shaking
Yeah.
medicine and just getting incredible results.
Yeah.
Lately I've been working on this is because we're, I guess, a more alternative. I've been developing a deep course where I'm teaching the fundamentals of Qigong and how to bring spontaneous movement into a Qigong
Uh-huh.
practice. For you,
Yeah.
that's probably quite intuitive, but the idea is like I'm making this course where I'm teaching the fundamentals of Qigong. And then what I realized actually after I started was that by bringing in the shaking medicine is that I'm essentially rebirthing a style of spontaneous Qigong to the world, which has largely been lost
Yes.
in the world. And they used to have it called, maybe Zifa Gong in
Yep.
that culture. Like I'm sure it's around in little pockets, but it's largely been lost. And I was like, wow, I'm birthing a style of Zifa Gong to the world. And for me, I love the Qigong because it's one of the most advanced energy embodiment sciences I've found, and
Mm.
to develop those centering and grounding skills of working with qi.
Yep.
It's just such a powerful complement to triggering. And I don't know about you, but like when the triggering moves through, um, like eventually, largely at first it clears the blockages, but then it gets to a point where it's like this Kundalini we can direct or we can send where we want it to, like more intentionally if we want, but of course we can also just let it be and do what it wants.
Yeah.
And so it's like the qigong of like skills. Just
Yeah.
it's like I can move the trimmer where I want, even
Yeah.
more and more with the qigong. Yeah.
It, it is amazing. And I've got a video. One of the guys who I taught TRE to is a Qigong teacher as well. And he practiced a form of shaking Qigong. And we've got this great video somewhere on the TRE Australia website of him doing his shaking Qigong, which is amazing. But it makes me laugh, Keith, because in the advanced online course that I've just done, right? So my background's a physiotherapist because I'm sort of working in mainstream. And so I've just done the 10th session of the 12 sessions in this advanced course where there's like a bit of theory to explain it and then there's a half an hour guided session. So there's 12 different sessions, each have a different topic. And the one that I've just done is called spatial awareness. And the reason it makes me laugh, right, is because in sort of my world and community and that I can't mention Qigong because instantly it's like, oh, energy, that's all woo woo. And so I've had to create in the course this sense of explaining how our brain maps the space around us, our peripersonal space, and then how our, visual system maps what we can see in our auditory system in the brain. So what I'm saying, I find it funny is I can't talk about energy. I mean, I can, but it doesn't. Once you say the word energy, I've just lost every physiotherapist in the world. And so,
Wow.
like it's like that. Every medical doctor, anyone who's medical or science based, say the word energy, they've already switched out. And so
But the thing is, physics, the
I
most advanced
know,
science there is, says everything is energy.
I know, I know,
So,
I know. Don't and so this is the thing. I'm with you, and you're 100% right. Is if you actually get people to talk about quantum energy and stuff, then it all comes back. But most people in that system, it's just like that's woo woo and that. So
yeah,
I'm having
yeah.
to you're working with the energy fields and qigong and that, and I have to language it and say, okay, we're going to work with the spatial awareness maps that are in your brain because that's kind of fits into a scientific model, and the fields that we can sense and receive information from basically infinite space across time and space. But it makes me laugh because I'm like I have to stay in my straitjacket of the language and the science.
Yeah.
But the beauty is
Well, good on you.
people. Well, the beauty is that people have the experience of connecting with something that's outside their skin and their physical body, in a language or a framework that makes sense and fits into a scientific model, but it's also very limited
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we can't just talk about energy.
Well, it's good on you because the world needs that. And so I love that you're doing that. And I
Yeah.
want to do your course. And I think it's like essentially you're teaching Qigong, but only using scientific
Sneaky.
language. And I think
That's it.
that's very valuable and needed. And that's going to
Yeah.
open the mainstream. And eventually they'll do that and that'll integrate. And then a little part of them might be open to something more alternative down the road.
Yeah.
And not that they need it necessarily, but like maybe
Yeah.
they'll get into it. So that's great. I think it's so important that we're
That's
like doing the same thing in different lenses in a way.
Yeah, that's right. I
It's so
often think
cool.
about it, it's like if you go to France, you've got to teach shaking in French. So it's like if I'm going to the mainstream medical community, I've got to translate it into that language. Um, and related to that is in the last 12 months, Keith, so I've stopped teaching the global TRE training certificate because I've got other people who are doing that. And I've been teaching what I call clinical TRE, and targeting sort of allied health professionals like physios and osteos and chiropractors and body workers. And this is again one of the other things that I like about TRE is then the hands-on component, that people who have body reading skills and body work skills learn to really integrate so that they can come to the tremoring body and not just use their existing, physio, chiro, osteo, massage, trigger pointing skills. They've got those. But when they're trained well, they learn to actually work with, again, we would call it the movement or the tremor mechanism to help facilitate the movement through the body. And so,
Oh, it's so cool.
there's that sense of working in groups, like everyone knows, and shaking in groups is different and better. I liken it to, you can sing on your own in the shower and it sounds great. You can sing in a choir and it's a whole other experience. So, people doing
Mm.
groups and TRE groups are great. And that sense of collective flow, that might be another topic that, anyway, I completely love that. But yeah, the skills that TRE providers grow and develop in being able to physically work with the tremoring body or the shaking body or the pandiculating body to help it free up even more can be quite profound. And again, if someone's just learnt TRE and they don't have those skills and their background psychology and they're going to have basic skills of those. But in the TRE community, there is a lot of people with a lot of bodywork skills, and there's a lot of value where people can really help the body free up more. So I think that's another area where the TRE community adds a lot of value to people.
That's extremely amazing and very synergistic once again. I think I shared with you that I did a bodywork training called Zen Tai Shiatsu. Completely amazing. It's based on Thai massage, Zen Shiatsu, Chinese medicine, like meridian theory and acupoints and all kinds of stuff like that. And what I find is having embodied this tremor mechanism for something like 8 years now, very clear of a lot of I like to call them charges in the body. And what happens is, probably you feel this too, is when I'm working on a body, it's like I can feel the energetic charge of where the tremoring can move.
Hmm.
And more often than not, like way more than half the time, let's say of people who've never done therapeutic tremoring, even over half the time I get their body into tremoring states, not because that's my intention, it's just because I feel the charge
Yep.
and their body starts, they're so relaxed, they start responding. And then, of course, if someone does shaking medicine or tea, it's pretty much 100% of the time I get them to experience that. So body work is it's something that's been alive in me the last couple of years.
Mm.
And all of my Zen Tai therapist friends, very few of them are getting people into this state of tremoring like I am that I can see. And it's simply because they're not embodied with the shake. Like when we're embodied with the
Yep.
shake, we learn to um, we just easily intuitively feel that energy in people. It's like, there we are. And our own nervous system gets so calm and relaxed that
Yeah.
It's like vibration. We feel this vibration.
Yeah.
So I love that you say like I love facilitating the tremor through body work.
Yeah.
Uh, I actually had a profound experience with my dad the other day where he was skeptical about the shaking medicine. He didn't really, he tried it once with me, but he's like, oh, I think that was just
Yeah.
my muscles being tired. He didn't really get it.
Yeah.
But then a few weeks ago, I was giving him a bodywork session, and for 2 hours at the beginning, his body starts to like he's like, "What's happening? Like, why is my body doing this?" I'm like, "Dad, I'm like,
Yeah.
Dad, it's shaking medicine. Just go with it." He's like, "Okay." I
Yeah.
literally just, without doing much, all over his body, I was just holding points
Yeah.
basically, or like tissues, and his whole body was just
Yeah.
like full blown releasing. And I was like, it was the most incredible spiritual experience for me because like I
Oh,
felt so seen because my own dad
yeah.
got
He got you.
really got shaking as he got
Yeah.
me. And then at the end I was holding his heart and I just started crying because I
Oh,
felt this merging with my father of like in the heart space, which I
yeah.
hadn't really felt. I mean, I felt it probably when I was a kid, but it's just this
Yeah.
connection that I craved for that I didn't even know. I
Yep.
guess I craved for, but it was like, whoa. It was like now I feel ever since then I felt like more full somehow, like more
Yep.
complete. And it's like, wow, it was the most incredible spiritual experience to get my own dad shaking. I never thought I'd have like such
Yeah.
a spiritual experience with my parents.
Look, my father passed away about 20 years ago. I'm so happy for you, Keith, because yeah, that sense of like your calling or your soul or your vocation and being seen and met by your dad like that. Like it's so heartwarming to hear that. It's such an invaluable experience. Now, we could keep talking for hours.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah.
so let's do some body stuff. But what I do want to do before we go into that is just what's so lovely about this is, recognizing that, as I say, at the heart of shaking medicine or TRE or Katsujunundo or biodynamic breath work or is this, organic wisdom of the body. And what I love so much is that, you know, around the planet, it is moving and arising for people. And what, makes my heart sing is in the same way that I watch a body and it's inevitable that when we let it move, it's going to move itself to a better place. That this is happening on a global scale, through the internet, through online, that people around the world are getting access to this. It's like the whole sort of humanity or the organism of humanity, the movements or the shaking or the tremor or the pandiculation is spreading. Um, it's so profound for me to watch that on a global scale and the way it's spreading through the entire human race as a macrocosm of the way it works through an individual human body. And at the end of the day, all we've got to do is sort of get out of the way and let it do its thing. So, kudos
I
to you and
hope.
all the people in the shaking medicine community who are sharing the shake and passing it on. Um, you know, it's just it's magic,
Yeah.
magic.
Thank you for being here. I love the work you're doing, and you must have touched countless souls with this by now. And I just appreciate you sharing your wisdom. And I hope that anyone watching this goes and does your courses. I've done your course there that's you created during COVID times, and I learned a lot. It was incredible, and I'm
Yeah.
excited about your next course. So I'll put the link somewhere around this video, so check it out, everyone.
Yeah, the,
Um,
the advanced course will be, I'm really proud of it. Like it's got 20 years of experience and knowledge and it's really simple and clean, but yeah, I'm really proud of it. And anyone, no matter how experienced you are, you're gonna get a lot out
yeah,
of it. Sort of, you don't need to do the basic one if you've already done lots of shaking medicine, but the 12 guided sessions exploring a whole lot of different elements is cool. But anyway, we're gonna dive in and you're gonna go into a shake and we'll see how we go.
yes. Let's embody. Let's show some. TRE embodiment.
And, as everyone who's watching this will already know, there's infinite different ways to go into the tremoring. And in TRE, classically, and again, you could do it standing or sitting or whatever, but classically in TRE, we'll do it lying down in a butterfly position. So if you just lie on your back, um, partly because that's, a really relaxed position, and we're looking to work with the pelvis, the adductors, and the psoas muscle. And generally, what would happen is, again, there's lots of different ways of doing it, but if you just let your knees drop all the way
Should I
out to
do
the
it like
side, yeah,
this?
no, stay where you are, is there, fine. And so
This
then
is
all
good
we do
angle.
with, yeah, that angle's fine. All we do with TRE is if you just lift your knees up 1 centimeter, Keith, just lift the knees up, yep, and hold them there. So all we're doing is using the muscle load and the activation of the muscles to connect with the shaking, because at the muscle fiber level, even if we can't see your legs moving, the muscle fibers are actually contracting and relaxing so fast. If we put on an EMG machine, you'd see the electrical activity. So, all the tissues are vibrating and shaking. So that's the way we would generally start, is just by fatiguing. Now, because Keith's got years of experience, you're just going to drop straight into it. You don't even need to do this. Don't even need to do this exercise. Most of you who'll be watching this will know, you can just surrender into it, and the body will start to kick out. But part of using this position is linking into the psoas muscle, which is that deep muscle connecting the thigh bone into the lumbar spine. It's like the core fight or flight muscle, or the eye fillet, that deep, often a deep area of holding.
I can feel my whole body already shaking and even
Yeah,
indicating.
that's right.
But if
You're
you're
just gonna,
nearer to this,
yeah,
probably that
you're
might
just
not be
gonna go
happening.
100%. So you don't need to necessarily keep the legs out, but I also encourage, if you just hold them there for a while, it's probably gonna, if you're not used to doing this position, then it's probably going to bring something new. And I always encourage people to make sure you tremor in all sorts of different positions: on your side, on your back, standing, sitting,
Mm.
kneeling, yoga positions, because it will bring something different. Good. So what I do want to use here again, because everyone who's doing the shaking is going to have their own way of doing it. So what I want to do is, in a moment, Keith, not yet, I'm going to give you the instructions, but in a moment, I'm going to get you to slide your legs out and take a break. And what I want you to do is notice and pay attention to any part of your body that relaxes or softens or lets go, or there's any relief once you stop the tremoring. So slide the legs out and take a break, and then just notice what happens in your body. Now, notice how your chest just dropped down with a bit of a breath there. Can you feel how the breath has come back in? There's movement in your upper chest.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anywhere else that sort of let go or relaxed a little bit?
Um, I feel like around my thighs and knees.
Yep. Okay.
Ooh.
So the reason I'm framing this is that before, when you were holding that position, I would say that upper part of your chest was actually protecting itself a little bit and not moving as freely as it might have, because once we stopped the tremors, then it relaxed and it started to breathe more freely, and there was more freedom of movement.
Uh-huh,
Now,
interesting.
so this is this sense of, that's a somatic marker that that part of the body was subtly holding against the letting go. Now, for someone like yourself, doesn't matter. We don't care. It's not like you're not going to get overwhelmed by it. You're not going to be triggered by it. So it doesn't really matter. However, now that it's relaxed, that becomes like a little light on the dashboard of your car. So now bring your legs back up into that tremoring position. Go back into the tremoring and lift the knees up, just drop back into it. So now, if you notice that part of your chest starts to hold and protect itself, then stop and have a break. Or if you can let it move more freely, then it's going to move more. So you'll see here how there's movement now coming into that area where before it wasn't quite moving as much.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I'm
it.
more aware of it now that you pointed it
Yeah.
out.
And keep an eye out, because now that that little layer has fallen away, there may be another layer where the body starts to protect itself.
I think the neck, shoulders, maybe.
All right. So as soon as it protects, if you can let that become movement, let it turn into movement. But if you're feeling it's like bracing and holding, slide the legs out and take a break. Good. So this is an example where learning to regulate these somatic markers of protection, it's not just about preventing any overwhelm, but actually about helping the body free up more, because more of the body is ready to move more freely. All right, so let's do it again. So even if you can't feel anything, slide your legs out, stop the tremors, take a break, and notice if anything softens, relaxes, or lets go anywhere in your experience.
I feel like my heart space.
Has softened a little bit now that you've stopped.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So again, what that means, if it's softening now that we've stopped, means that it was hardening up a little bit while we were tremoring and holding in that area. So now that it's relaxed, go back into the tremoring again. If you need to, you might find it just starts to move spontaneously, but go back into the tremoring. And if your heart space starts to tighten up or tense up again, rather than just continuing on, honor that response and give it a little break, give it a bit of a rest. And if you want to go onto your side, if you're comfortable with your head lifting up like that, stay there. But if you want to go onto your side or your front or any other position, then just follow your body. And the key thing I want to point out to everyone watching this is, so, we've got Keith, he's done years and years of tremoring. We often think, oh, if I've done lots of tremoring, I'm not going to have any of these parts of my body that I'm disconnected to. But every single one of us, the next layer of unconscious tension and protection in the organism that's not conscious, there's always going to be that next layer of the body that we haven't yet been connected with and that we're not yet even aware has been bracing and holding and preventing movement. So it's not a matter that going, if I'm experienced, I'm not going to have any of these disconnection patterns. It's the classic sort of onion layer. We're always going to have this next little subtle layer that we weren't consciously connected to, that when it comes back online, often the first thing that we become aware of is when it comes online and we feel it bracing. That's like often that first sense of getting it reconnected to an area that's been disconnected and immobilized, and is we actually feel the protection there. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying there, Keith?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And how's your heart space while you're tremoring there now? Is it different?
Yeah, it feels a little bit more soft.
Great.
I'm
All right.
feeling the joy of tremoring.
Yeah, beautiful.
uh,
Now, the other thing I want to point out
uh,
to people, and for me, this is it, right, is we see so much movement through the body, and yet the facial muscles are so often not involved. And our face is the first part of our organism that we get conscious control of. We talk about the mask. And so often there's a split that happens where the jaw is not moving, the eyes are not moving, the forehead is not moving, even though there's all this movement through all the other muscles of the body. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, Keith, is as this is happening, just consciously scrunch your face up a little bit. So pull your eyes down, grit your teeth a little bit. Now, you don't have to do it super hard. Just do it gently enough that you can connect to the face and any vibration or sensations or movement in the facial muscles. So we want to let that energy come all the way up, and we want that movement to come into the cheeks, the eyes. Let your eyes move, let your eyelids flutter. Good. And maybe even bring your hands up and put your hands on your jaw, side of your jaw up near your TMJ, and just give the skin and the fascia, just give it a little sort of stretch in a few different directions. And, on your forehead, yeah, you can keep your hands there, because what we want to do is let the facial muscles be connected. Because if one leg wasn't moving and everything else was moving, we'd think that was weird. But we see this all the time, where there's huge amounts of movement through the entire organism and almost nothing happening in the facial muscles.
Mhm. Mm.
That's it. Let the eyes go. Let the eyelids go. Let your mind completely wander. Don't try to stay present. Let your jaw open or close. Let the teeth clench or open. Let your forehead and your scalp move. Let your eyebrows move. That's it. That's it. Yep. That's it. And if there's sound, let sound come. Yep. That's it. Let the eyebrows and the forehead go. There we go. Yep. Top of the scalp. Let almost the scalp where your hair is. Yep. Let that come all the way up. Let your face connect with that. Express. Let your face move. That's it. That's it. Yep. Right up in your forehead, out to your ears, your whole face. That's it. Now we're in this pandicular. Good. Good. And from the top of your head, feel right down to your coccyx bone. That's it. Let the face move. Yep. Yep. Keep going. Good. Let the tongue move. Forehead, eyebrows. That's it. Let the eyebrows go. Cheeks, jaw. Good. Keep going. So we're watching this beautiful autogenic pandiculation. Yep. Connect with the fingers and the toes. Let the movement come into the toes. Let the toes curl or spread. That's it. Let the fingers curl or spread. Yep. Right up to the forehead. More into the cheeks. That's it. Beautiful. And of course, if I was there in person, and even better, if we had 5 or 6 people there, what I would be doing now, this is one of our common things in TRE, is I would be having one person would hold a foot, someone would hold a hand, someone would hold another hand, another foot, someone would hold the top of the head. And we can actually then play with capping or containing the peripheries, which is going to bring more movement into the core. So this is where there's whole lots of things we can do. At the moment, we're seeing the organisms like trying to stretch itself out from the inside out. And by containing the movement, so we're going to try something. Hang on to your feet, Keith. So grab onto your feet. So now his hands and his feet can't really move separate to each other. And that's going to send the movement, and the energy is going to have to find a different way. And it's probably going to come into his core, the back of the heart space. Let your face be involved. Let the forehead go. Let the eyebrows go. That's it. Yep. Forehead. Good, 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 good. Yep. Good. Let it come all the way up. And as far as I've been told and read, the origins of yoga was spontaneous autogenic pandiculations. That's where a lot of the postures came from. And this is what we're seeing here. It wasn't that people thought, oh, what's a good exercise? that the ancient yogis followed the positions that their bodies went into, and then we translated that into, hey, let's do these exercises consciously, both of which, of course, have value. Good. Now let go of one of your feet. Yep. And so this is where, and in fact, hold your left foot with your right hand and let go with your left hand. So again, here, what I'm wanting to suggest here is to work with a more diagonal pattern, because we could see before his body was going very forwards and back. And by introducing a diagonal position or an asymmetrical one-sided position, it's going to give his body something different. Yeah, let your back extend. It's going to want to arch. That's it. So it's flexing. It's going to want to come into a big, yeah, just keep following it all the way out to the toes, fingertips, toes, eyebrows, jaw, tongue.
Yeah.
That's it. So we can see how it's flexing as it twists. The middle of the back of his heart space there, it's going to want to come into extension. It's going to want to arch in the other direction, but still working its way there. That's it. Yep. Now you can keep holding that foot if that feels right, or you can let go. If you want, there we go. It's starting to come into the middle of the sort of the bottom of his shoulder blades, the back of the bottom of his heart space. Even though there's all this huge movement. That's it. Yep. Let the face be part of it. Yep. That's it. Let the facial muscles be connected. And my sense here is it's still grappling with itself, because my sense is it really wants to go into a big extension at the back of his heart space.
That way. That way, you think?
If you come onto your side, yep, that's it. Yep, put your foot down. Yeah, and just relax there and see what it wants to do in that position. So where that movement, so it's like you can see that area that's lifting up, like the level of the bottom of his shoulder blades, is where it's trying to find a tiny little bit more freedom, even though there's this huge movement. That's it. There. That's the, yeah, let the head come right back. Let the jaw be open. That's it. Let the body extend. Let the heels come up. That's it. Let the knees bend if they want. Toes, fingers. There's the extension. That's it. Yep. Let the head pull right back. Jaw open. Cheeks. That's it. Big breath. That's it. Yeah, stay on your front for a bit. And so this is where we can see is the pelvis is bouncing up and down, and we can see how that wave is coming up the spine, but then it's not quite getting through the bottom of the shoulder blade level. Yeah, just beautiful. So now it's trying to come down from the top, and we can see where the movement gets a bit restricted. Good. And as this is happening, Keith, let the body rotate. Don't change any positions, but just let it twist if it wants to twist sideways rather than just straight up and down. That's it. Good. Yep. Let the cheeks wobble. Let the cheeks wobble. Let the eyebrows wobble. Fingers. That's it. Shoulder blades. Let the shoulder blades be free. That's it. That's the area. That's it. Let the shoulder blade. That's in there. There it is. There it is. Good. Shoulder blades. Now we can see the movement. We can see where all the creases are in his back of his t-shirt, where it's now coming further up to the bottom of his shoulder blades. There we go. Now the movements are getting sort of halfway up his shoulder blades through his spine. And one of my favorite positions, Keith, which I would love to do now, is what I call hips high child's pose. And we could just let you keep going, but come up onto your knees with your forehead on the floor between your hands. Yep, and your hip, that's it. So your hips are up high, and let your shoulder blades move and be free. And I love this position because it can take out a bit of gravity in the thoracic spine. Now we see how the body's starting to get into that rotating and twisting. So it's trying to twist its way through. There we go. Yeah, let your head roll. That's it. Good. So a great example where following what the body's trying to do, and sometimes we might oppose that and prevent it from moving, and that's going to do something different. But you can see how in this position there's more degrees of freedom. The body can twist in 3 dimensions rather than just flex and extend. And look how much more movement is coming all the way up through. So now, yeah, Keith, let it come right back to the top of the thoracic spine where it meets the cervical spine. So, you know, everyone, we have that vertebrae that sticks out, the first one at the bottom of the neck.
We call it the rusty hinge sometimes.
Yeah, okay, so the rusty hinge. So now the movement's coming up to there. Again, let it twist and rotate. So deliberately surrender to the twisting and the rotate. Yeah, now let the head shake, and let the shake travel down your body. Let the shake travel down towards your spine. That's better. So we often get stuck thinking the movements and the shake only are going upwards, whereas it should be able to move in all directions, up, down the body, down the legs, up the legs. Good, yeah. Let it rotate. Let your head and neck rotate. That's better. Yep. Let the rusty hinge. Let that rusty hinge be a 3D hinge, not a forwards back hinge, a 3-dimensional hinge. That's it. Yes, 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 yes. Yep. Let it rotate. Ah, look at that. That is just magic. Good. And let it come all the way into your face, your jaw, forehead, cheeks, tongue. Yep. Let that shake travel down. Let the shake travel down through the body, down to your tailbone. From the top of your head, let it shake downwards. That's it. Let it travel down the spine. Beautiful. Yep. So all the way to the soles of the feet, to the palms, center of the palms of your hand. Let it come out through the soles of the feet, the palms of the hand, traveling from the head and the neck down through, out your tailbone. And we could go on forever.
Yeah, I'm having
Just
yeah, that's a good wave.
that is
Oh.
magic, magic, magic. And you know, David Berselli and I would agree, would say that we would believe that the body's going to get there eventually. And if we just let it shake and do its thing, it's probably going to get there. But by, first of all, getting into deeper relationship with those somatic markers of protection and taking a little break and just honoring the fact that part of the body is going, hey, I'm not ready to let go, giving it a break, letting it relax, and then starting to move makes it a much more efficient, graceful journey, in my experience. And then also by following the body, and we can use positioning and all sorts of stuff. Again, there's no one there to do hands-on stuff. We can help the body to get where it wants to go much more efficiently and effectively. And that's where, for someone like yourself, Keith, if you're part of your body's bracing and holding, it's not going to make any real major difference to you. But for someone who's got a history of trauma or overwhelm, if those little bracing patterns are happening and they're not picking them up, at that point when it's bracing, that's when stuff is coming up. And it's not until we finish the session we go, oh, then I felt anxious afterwards. It's not coming up then. It's coming up during the session, but disconnected and split off. Now, again, to be really clear to everyone, this does not mean that you need to get over regulating. This is the big danger in the TRE world where people get hyper vigilant to regulating everything. And any little bit of tension, I've got to stop. That's the other extreme. One extreme is like, I'll just shake and do whatever. And if stuff comes up, and the other end of TRE is like over regulating. So it's finding that balance and knowing when to let go and surrender, when to keep pushing, and when to go. What a treat. I don't get to encourage, really. I didn't really do anything apart from encourage you. I don't get to encourage bodies to move like that very often, Keith. That's a hell of a lot of fun.
Your guidance was spot on and so beautiful and encouraging
It's
and
phenomenal movements.
insightful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be
Oof.
able to use any of this video in the Australian Physiotherapy Association Facebook groups
Ah,
because
oh,
it's just it's so
too
far
woo.
outside the clinical sphere that people would just
Yeah,
go, oh, it's all made
the
up woo woo problems.
mainstream bodies probably won't be shaking and pendiculating quite like that usually.
Not
Sometimes
like
maybe.
not like that. How do you feel? What's been the effect of that session? What do you notice is different?
I feel more aware of certain parts of my body, like that shoulder blade, heart area. Um, just I feel like I have some new insights to play with in my practice and in my teachings to like this is no doubt going to upgrade the shaking medicine modality with new insights and wisdoms. Already I'm inspired. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really beautiful. I feel alive and free. Um, I did the Ashtanga this morning, which totally warmed up my body. So I think I went a
Yeah,
lot deeper because I'm already super warm. And then it was just perfect to just like be able to go so deep.
yeah.
Wow, that was profound. Like, yeah, really beautiful. Mm.
That was amazing. So let me ask you a leading question. And this is the value of when we've got people working with our body and things that we can't yet see or that. What do you notice when you tune into the experience of your face, your eyes, your visual field? What do you notice about how that feels?
For me, it feels pretty important to get that area going. It's easy to clench or to be stuck in a sort of facial expression, but to bring awareness to it, to, oh yeah, move around, stick out the tongue and move
Yeah,
the eyes, the eyebrows, it's nice to have that cued and the guidance as well. And the facial tremoring and spontaneous movement, I agree is very, very important
yeah,
to bring into the process. Yeah, I feel like especially when the eyes start going, it brings energy into the glands of the brain and processes mental tension. I
yep,
can then ground. That's been my experience. So thank you for, yeah, bringing
yeah.
that in.
You're welcome, because that's the thing that's standing out most to me is the changes in the physiology of your facial muscles and the muscles around your eyes look really different. Like that's really,
Ah,
really obvious. And in my experience, especially, depending on when we're, especially people who are really visual, is when we start to get changes in the eye muscles and the ear muscles and the facial muscles, is when I notice the biggest changes in people's minds starting to slow down. I mean, if you're really kinesthetic, then the body stuff does it. But yeah, getting into our eye, literally, I find when people start to get that happen is often when we get the biggest changes in terms of our racing mind, the intellect, and the vigilance in the eye and the visual field.
the eyes are like, there's so much nervous system energy going to that region, and it's so closely connected to the brain that no, that's just to get that area releasing and soft is
That,
profound.
well,
Yeah.
that's right. So I did a whole in the advanced online course. I did a session called the face. And one of my favorite quotes in there is this sense of if the eyes are the window to the soul, then the face is the doorway. So we often focus on the eyes, but the face for me that's like another whole layer that, again, you start watching every video you see on tremoring, not everyone, but so many of them, you see all this stuff happening in the body and just nothing in the face. It's like it's bizarre. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
encourage
important.
everyone to get into that fate because again, that's where our mask is. That's where our greatest armoring is. That's where we are most contained, not just in how we're expressing to the external world, but that masking is the area that most disconnects us from what's really going on inside ourselves. And not just our stress and tension and triggers, but our vitality and our aliveness and our humanness. It's like the face coming back online. For me, that's like the ultimate sort of bringing us back into reawakening ourselves in our humanity and
Mm.
our soul. Um, so, yeah, everyone out there, get the face going. Jump into the
Get
face.
your face going. Yes. Thank
That's
you,
it.
Richmond. This has been amazing. Thank you for your time, your energy, and
A
everyone. Check
pleasure.
out his courses. They're amazing. I've done the one and the one that's coming out, I have no doubt it will be
It's a
amazing.
good one.
So link somewhere around.
Yep.
Check it out. Reach out for support, questions, all of that. And let's not wait 2 years for our next
No,
rendezvous.
we catch up, and we still have to run. We have talked for years about running something together live in person. What was shaking
Oh,
on the edge? We called it. This is like 5 years ago. We had this idea of running something together. So
I'd love that. Yeah. And I'll have to come to Minergy there.
yeah,
You've been
you
trying to
have
get me
to
to come
come
for
to Menergy.
years.
You have to
Yeah.
come to Menergy, but maybe we can run a retreat together somewhere in Thailand or somewhere Bali, or that would
I
be.
would absolutely love that. I think that would be a game
We will
changer.
we will get there one day. All right.
That's in my future vision, retreats in these places. Yeah.
I'll get
Awesome,
it. All right.
Richard.
Love you lots. Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun.
Love you too, bro.
And again, thanks for the work you're doing, having a hub. What I said to you many when we first met, one of my original dreams was to have like a shaking hub where it wasn't just TRE, but it was like all these different stuff and having an online community, which is really what you're doing. So from that point, I was like, I don't need to do this. You're doing it. It's great. All cute,
I'd love for
kudos and
you to
power
be
to you.
an honorary member if you want to be part of
I'll,
it and
I will
be in
sign
it.
up. I'm happy to be an honorary
Oh,
member.
yeah, yeah, cool.
Lovely.
I'll invite you.
All right.
Invite you in. You
Thank
have a
you.
beautiful day. Bye, Richard.
See ya.